Imagine waking up to a sun that has no shadow. For 18 months in 536 AD, the light that sustained the world simply withered away, beginning a decade of ice, plague, and silence that nearly erased civilization from the map.
This was the moment the world went dark, and for those who lived through it, it felt like the literal end of days. To understand how a single year became the worst year to be alive, we have to look into the very atmosphere of our planet, where a chemical veil turned the sun into a bluish ghost and cast the Northern Hemisphere into a volcanic winter that would not break for a generation.
The catastrophe did not begin with a war or a prophecy, but with a silent, catastrophic eruption in the far north. Early in 536 AD, a volcano in Iceland, or perhaps North America, exploded with such violence that it injected massive quantities of sulfate aerosols directly into the stratosphere. These microscopic particles formed a reflective blanket high above the clouds, bouncing solar radiation back into space and preventing the sun's heat from ever reaching the ground.
Historians like Procopius, standing in the heart of the Mediterranean, recorded the arrival of a mystery cloud that remained for over a year. He wrote that the sun gave forth its light without brightness, resembling an eclipse that never ended. By the spring of 536, the atmosphere had dimmed so severely that people could no longer see their own shadows at midday. But the Earth was not finished. Just as the atmosphere began to settle, a second, even more massive eruption occurred in 540 AD. Recent geologic evidence suggests the culprit was the Ilopango volcano in present-day El Salvador. This tropical eruption was colossal, ejecting 10% more aerosols into the atmosphere than the infamous 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora. This double tap of volcanic fury initiated the late antique Little Ice Age, the coldest period in the last 2,300 years. The immediate damage was a biological emergency that spanned the globe. In 536, summer temperatures plummeted by as much as 2.5 degrees Celsius below normal in Europe. The result was a world where the seasons simply stopped making sense. In China, imperial records document snow falling in the middle of August, destroying the cereal crops and leading to massive starvation. Across the ocean in Ireland, the Gaelic annals recorded a failure of bread that lasted from 536 to 539 AD. Without sunlight, the primary production of the earth ground to a halt. Growing degree days, the cumulative heat needed for crops to mature, collapsed by almost 500 degree days in some regions, making it impossible to grow wheat or buckwheat. This was not just a hungry year. It was a total breakdown of the agricultural energy budget that civilizations were built upon. In Scandinavia, the disaster was so profound that it likely inspired the Norse myth of Fimbulwinter, the 3 consecutive winters without a summer that precede the twilight of the gods. Archaeological surveys in Sweden show that up to 50% of the population in certain regions may have vanished during this period, leaving behind abandoned farms and silent villages. The cooling was the catalyst, but the real death toll came from what followed in the shadows. By 541 AD, the famine-weakened populations of the Roman Empire faced a new microscopic threat, the Plague of Justinian. The bacterium Yersinia pestis struck the Egyptian port of Pelusium and spread like wildfire through a population that was already suffering from chronic malnutrition and vitamin D deficiency. When the human body is deprived of sunlight and adequate calories, its immune defenses crumble. The plague eventually wiped out 1/3 to 1/2 of the population of the Eastern Roman Empire, effectively ending Emperor Justinian's dream of reunifying the Roman world. The synergy of the volcanic winter and the pandemic created a concatenation of disasters that broke the back of the ancient economy. The damage extended to the Maya civilization in Central America, where the 540 AD eruption of Ilopango may have triggered a century-long dark age or hiatus. Cities in present-day El Salvador were evacuated as mass crop failures and disease led to internal strife and a sudden gap in written records and construction. People fled to the Maya highlands, seeking thicker soils and more reliable water, while the cities they left behind fell into decay.
The aftermath of 536 AD was a century of economic and social stagnation. From 536 to roughly 640 AD, the ice core records show a world that had ground to a halt. But as the climate finally began to recover, a new signal appeared in the Swiss glaciers, a spike in airborne lead. This lead was a byproduct of silver smelting, signaling a massive resurgence in mining and a fundamental transformation of the European economy. Because gold had become scarce during the Long Dark, the emergent medieval economy shifted its monetary standard to silver. This mark in the ice reveals the rise of the merchant class for the first time, a society rebuilding itself from the ashes of the old Roman order. In Scandinavia, the aftermath led to a desperate religious response. Elites began burying massive hoards of gold bracteates and amulets, likely as a ritualistic bribe to the gods to return the sun to the sky. While coastal regions in Norway saw a demographic collapse, some inland areas in Sweden and Norway actually prospered by diversifying their land use and increasing iron production to trade for food. However, the year 536 had one unexpected winner: Arabia. While the volcanic winter brought frost and famine to the north, it appeared to increase fertility and rainfall on the Arabian Peninsula. This boost in food supply, combined with the systematic weakening of the Roman and Sassanid empires by plague and cold, provided the energetic and
political fuel for the Arab expansion and the Islamic conquests that would soon follow. The year 536 AD was not just a bad year, it was a planetary reboot. Step by step, the eruptions of Iceland and Ilopango dismantled the ancient world, using a veil of sulfur to trigger a domino effect of frost, famine, and plague. We only know the full extent of this horror today because of ultra-precise laser technology that can carve 120-micron slivers of ice, allowing us to read the history of the Dark Ages month by month. The damage caused by the mystery cloud left a permanent scar on the demographic chronology of our species. It reminds us that our civilization is not a fortress, but a delicate metabolic system that depends on the reliability of the sun. The next time you look at the sun and see your shadow stretching out behind you, remember the 18 months when that simple phenomenon vanished. We are the descendants of those who endured the long winter of 536 AD, the ones who kept the fires burning when the light of the world went out. If you want to explore the deep time instincts that allowed us to survive the worst decade in history, make sure to check out the rest of our investigation into the origins of humanity. Stay curious